All right, so welcome back to another deep dive with us. This time we're taking a look at a rivalry that a listener sent our way, and it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
Oh?
Yeah, it's the A23 Derby, the one between Crystal Palace and Brighton. Now, what's odd is these two clubs, they aren't exactly what you'd call neighbors.
No.
They're something like 39 miles apart, which isn't exactly next door.
Right. You'd think for such a big rivalry, they'd be, a little closer to each other.
Right, practically sharing a parking lot, you know?
Yeah.
So where does this intensity come from?
That is a good question. There are clubs much closer to both of them.
Yeah, and this deep dive, it revealed something interesting. This rivalry, it's as much about personalities as it is about location. We're talking about two managers, Alan Mullery at Brighton and Terry Venables at Crystal Palace.
Right?
And, both of them, they were former Tottenham players.
Oh,
And, well, apparently they didn't exactly get along back in their Tottenham days.
So their bad blood continued even after they stopped playing together.
It seems that way. Yeah, their tension, it kind of spilled over into their managing careers.
I see.
And that tension became a catalyst for this A23 Derby in the 1970s.
So they kind of accidentally poured gasoline on this rivalry that was just waiting to start.
Exactly. It's like they were unintentionally fanning the flames, so to speak. And get this, that spark, it came in the form of nicknames.
Nicknames? Really?
Yeah. So Crystal Palace, they'd adopted the Eagles just a few years before this all kicked off.
Okay.
And then, during a match against Palace in 1976, some Brighton fans, they decided they needed a counter chant.
Yeah.
So, come on, you Seagulls! That's where it all started.
Talk about a rivalry taking flight.
Literally, right.
Literally.
So that Seagulls nickname, it really cemented the rivalry. It was like, okay, this is a battle of the birds now.
Right. It wasn't just chance, though, was it?
No, it was way more than that. Things got really, really heated that same year at an FA Cup tie. The referee, Ron Chalice, he made this very controversial call, ordered a penalty retake for Brighton because of encroachment.
Oh, so this is the infamous Chalice of the Palace incident.
The one and only. So on that first attempt, Brighton scores. But then Chalice calls for the retake. Second attempt, saved. And then Brighton ends up losing the match.
Wow. What a turn of events. Was the encroachment actually from a Palace player? People still debate that, don't they?
To this day, yeah. But Alan Mullery, the Brighton manager, he was furious. Absolutely livid.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. He was escorted off the pitch by police and let loose on the Palace fans. Some really colorful language. And to top it all off, the two-fingered salute.
Oh, wow. I can't believe he did that.
Yeah. But with the Brighton supporters, it made him a legend.
Really?
Yeah, Mullery's outburst, it became like this folk hero story for Brighton fans.
Wow.
Which, of course, only fueled the rivalry even more. And it made it clear, this wasn't just friendly competition anymore. There was some real bad blood brewing.
I can't believe how much happened in just 1 year. So we've got geography thrown out the window. We've got feuding managers. We've got nicknames. We've got referee drama.
And we aren't even close to done.
There's more. What else could possibly add to this crazy mix?
Well, let's fast forward a few decades to, let's say, the 2012-13 championship playoff. That's where we find Poogate.
Poogate.
What's that? So picture this. The Palace team, they walk into their changing room at Brighton Stadium, and what do they find?
Don't tell me.
Human excrement.
You're kidding.
And not just like a little bit. This was smeared all over the toilet floor.
Oh, gross. That's awful. I can't believe someone would do that.
Right. Talk about psychological warfare.
Seriously. You have to wonder how far people are willing to go in the name of rivalry.
It's wild, isn't it? Of course, Palace, they assumed it was Brighton, some dirty tactic to, sabotage them. But there's a twist.
Of course there is. There's always a twist with this rivalry. What happened?
A former Palace player, he came out later and said that it was actually their own coach driver.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently the guy had a bit of a, shall we say, digestive mishap on the way to the stadium.
Oh, my goodness. So was it sabotage or just an upset stomach?
We may never know the truth. But it's these kinds of bizarre incidents, that make this A23 Derby so fascinating.
Absolutely. It shows that this rivalry, it goes beyond just what happens on the field. It's got all these strange, almost absurd moments that become legendary.
Like a soap opera, but with football. And speaking of characters, there's one player whose career is kind of weirdly connected to both these clubs, Glenn Murray.
Oh, yeah. What about him?
He was a star player for Brighton,
Okay.
but then he did the unthinkable.
What?
He transferred to Crystal Palace.
No way.
And of course, what happens? He scores against his former team,
Of course.
gets injured against them,
Oh, no.
and then, years later, returns to Brighton.
Oh, wow. What a storyline.
You can't make this stuff up.
You really can't. It just goes to show the complex emotions this rivalry stirs up. The loyalty, the sense of betrayal, maybe even a little forgiveness, who knows? I bet Murray's not the only player who's been affected by this rivalry.
So we've got these big personalities, crazy incidents, even players caught in the crossfire. Where do we go from here?
Well, we know how this rivalry started, but the real question is, how has it changed over time? Did things cool down, or have they gotten even more intense?
That's a great question. To figure that out, I guess we need to look into the more recent history of the A23 Derby.
Yeah, I think so too. It's fascinating how that period of separation actually made the rivalry even bigger when it came back. It's like being apart made both sides realize how much they actually missed it. And when the A23 Derby fully returned, the intensity was even higher.
Makes you think, right? Does absences make the heart grow fonder? Or does it just give rivalries time to get even stronger? But speaking of intense moments, did you read about that match back in 1989? 5 penalties in a single game. Can you believe that?
Oh yeah, that match. That one's legendary. 3 for Palace and 2 for Brighton. Talk about chaotic. Sums up this whole rivalry pretty well, actually.
It really does. So 5 penalties, how does that even happen?
Well, it all started with a fantastic goal, Ian Wright for Palace.
Yeah.
But then, after that, things got a bit messy. Fouls in the penalty area, controversial calls from the ref, and suddenly it's just penalty after penalty. Some go in, some don't. It was madness. The tension must have been unbelievable.
Oh, I bet. What a game to watch as a fan. Speaking of which, it seems like after that crazy period in the late 80s and early 90s, things went quiet again for a while. What happened?
Well, remember how we talked about Brighton having some tough years?
Yeah.
Dropping down the leagues, the financial troubles, all of that.
Right.
It's hard to keep a rivalry going strong when the teams aren't playing each other regularly.
Like a fire without oxygen, right? It's got to have fuel to keep going.
Exactly. But the potential was always there, just waiting for the right moment to flare up again. And like we mentioned before, that happened in the 2012-13 season when both clubs found themselves back in the championship.
Back together again. And of course, who could forget Poogate that same season? Definitely didn't help to calm things down, did it?
Not at all. Sabotage or just an unfortunate accident, it doesn't matter. It became a big part of the A23 Derby story. Just another layer of weirdness on top of this already bizarre rivalry.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Rivalries are more than just the games themselves. It's the stories, the myths, those moments that fans talk about for years.
Absolutely. And those stories, they tell you a lot about the mindset of a rivalry. How far will people go to get an edge, even if it means using some, shall we say, questionable tactics?
It's like tribal warfare.
Yeah.
But with chants, pranks, and, allegedly human waste instead of weapons.
That's one way to put it. But all jokes aside, the thing that I find fascinating is how much the A23 Derby has ramped up on the pitch in recent years. The games have been something else.
Yeah, they have been. Since Brighton got promoted to the Premier League in 2017, it feels like every match has been a must-watch.
Exactly. Close games, late winners, controversial decisions by the refs, and you can feel the passion from both sets of players and fans. It's electric.
You can really tell that both clubs being in the Premier League together has pushed the rivalry to another level.
For sure. That extra competition, that fight to be the best in the top league, it adds so much. But here's the thing. Even with all that intensity and competitiveness, there's something else there too. A deep-seated respect, maybe even a sense of shared identity between these two clubs. It's more than just hate.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like, they're rivals, but they also understand each other in a way that other clubs don't.
Exactly. And I think the best example of that is the Robert Eaton Memorial match.
Oh, yeah.
This annual charity match played between fans of both clubs. It's, remember, a Brighton fan who, very sadly, lost his life in the 9/11 attacks. It shows that even the biggest rivals can come together when it really matters.
A powerful reminder that there's more to life than football, right? It's about human connection, compassion, sharing in grief, and honoring a life.
I think that's what makes the A23 Derby so unique. It's not just about the rivalry, it's about everything that comes with it. The ups and downs, the highs and lows, the good and the bad.
Like a microcosm of life itself, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, with all its complexities and contradictions. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive into the A23 Derby, we want to hear from you, the listener. What are your thoughts? What's been the most interesting thing about this rivalry?
Is it the weird stuff, the heated moments on the pitch, or that sense of respect and shared history?
Or maybe it's something else entirely, something that speaks to your own experiences with rivalries and how they've shaped your worldview.
Whatever it is, take a moment to think about it. The A23 Derby is a fascinating lens to look at rivalries in general.
Hmm.
After all, rivalries, in every form, they're a big part of being human.
They bring out passion, frustration, joy, even inspiration. And, as we've seen with the Eagles and the Seagulls, they can also remind us of our shared humanity, with all its quirks and complexities.
We've had a lot of fun digging into this unique rivalry with you, but now we want to hear your side of the story.
What other rivalries, in sports or any other area of life, have really captured your attention? What makes those rivalries so compelling to you? And what do they tell us about ourselves as individuals and as a society?
We're always looking for new ideas and perspectives, so please share your thoughts with us. You never know, your ideas might just inspire our next deep dive. You know, it's funny, when you really dig into something like a football rivalry, it can really make you think about things in a different way. This A23 Derby, it really does show you the whole spectrum of human experience. You've got the passion, the drama, the craziness, but then you also have those moments of genuine connection.
It's true. And that's what I find so interesting about rivalries, whether it's in football, politics, or even between brands that are competing for our attention. They really tap into something deep within us that need to belong and define ourselves in relation to others. It's fascinating.
Yeah, but as we've learned with the A23 Derby, it's not as simple as just us versus them.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it, so many layers and contradictions.
Think about it. These two clubs, miles apart, no real reason to be rivals, but somehow they've built this whole story around their competition. Larger-than-life personalities, these bizarre incidents, and a level of passion that you'd expect from teams that share a city. It's wild.
And it's constantly evolving, fading away and then coming back even stronger. Each time there's a new twist, a new layer of intrigue.
Yeah, and through it all, there's this undercurrent of respect, an understanding that even though they're rivals, they're connected by their history and their love for the game.
And that's really highlighted in that Robert Eaton Memorial match. A beautiful reminder that even the most intense rivals can find common ground and come together for something bigger than themselves.
It really shows you the power of sport, how it can break down barriers and bring people together. Even in the middle of a fierce rivalry, there's that shared humanity. It's a powerful thing.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the A23 Derby, we want to encourage you to keep exploring the world of rivalries. Look beyond the surface, dig into the history. You might be surprised at what you find.
Exactly. And you never know. You might end up with a newfound appreciation for your own rivals. They play a role in shaping who we are, whether we realize it or not.
Because let's be honest, life would be pretty boring without a little competition, wouldn't it? That us versus them dynamic is part of what makes us human.
Well said. And a huge thanks to you, our listener, for suggesting this amazing topic, the A23 Derby. It's been a real eye-opener. It's shown us that even the smallest rivalry can become this captivating story, full of laughter, tears, and those moments that remind us what it means to be human. It's been a pleasure exploring it with you.
And remember, there are so many other rivalries out there, each with its own unique story waiting to be told. Keep those suggestions coming, and we'll keep diving deep into these fascinating worlds. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing all the weird and wonderful things that make life so interesting.